welcome to the summer sessions for Jessamine County Library. I'm your host, Susan Hawkins, and I'm going to be with you this summer for 6 different sessions and hopefully introduce you to some new media or some media maybe that you've worked with we can work with in a different way. We've got 6 sessions. They're all going to be from home, and for each lesson on the website, and while you meet with me, I will give you a supply list. These sessions are intended for middle and high school students, but anybody is welcome to join and can manipulate and play with the project any way that works for them. So anybody can come, anybody can have fun, and hopefully that you will enjoy these projects. So for lesson 1 today, we are actually going to do space art. Here's an example of what we're going to do. It's kind of a 2-part project because there is a background that we're going to create and then also a moon that we're going to create to put onto the background. So it's actually 2 pieces. So some of these projects may have a little bit of drying time between them, and I've kind of adapted these projects to kind of showcase how you can move forward once they dry. But for today's lesson, the things that you will need a white piece of paper for your background. You will need some washable markers. Now I have chosen markers that are in dark colors for space. So I've got blue, purple, teal, black, those sorts of colors. But you're more than welcome to create space however you interpret it. So it doesn't have to be like that, but those are the colors I'm using. They do need to be washable markers because they need to be water soluble. So don't use permanent markers. You will need to use a water-based marker, but it doesn't have to be Crayola. It can be any kind of school marker. You will also need a Ziploc bag or saran wrap. So today I will be using a plastic bag that I'm actually going to cut apart. And any kind of Ziploc bag, the bigger the better will work because it gives you more surface area the bigger it is. However, you can tear off a piece of plastic wrap that you've got at home in the kitchen. That'll work just as well. You will need a spray bottle of some sort filled with a little bit of water. We are using paint to create our moon. So the colors of paint will be based upon the colors that you choose for your moon, however you want that to be. The colors I've included are black, brown, gray, dark brown, the sort of neutral colors. So, but the colors of paint that you choose are the colors that are going to be for your moon. So that depends on what you want as well. You will need some sort of glue to attach your moon. So I've got liquid glue and I've got glue stick here. You will need a pair of scissors. You will need some sort of paintbrush or spare toothbrush. We are going to put white speckles on the back of this, so in order to do those splatters, I've included a toothbrush and also white paint for that in order to put those white speckles on there. But if you don't have a toothbrush, make sure that you use an old one, not your new one. You can use an old paintbrush. You're also going to need a small piece of aluminum foil. So if you have aluminum foil at home in the kitchen, we're just going to be tearing off a little piece of aluminum foil. Some sort of round roll or lid to trace. This will make it easier when you are cutting out your piece of paper for the moon. So I have included just a little plastic bowl here for me to trace. However, this gives you an example of some other things that you might have laying around the house, some Tupperware lids, coffee can lids, something like that, paper plate, just something small that is smaller than the size of your paper that you can trace for your circle. If you don't have that though, you can freehand it. And then last, optional, this is if you are concerned about drying time. I have included a hair dryer, so if you have a hair dryer at home, you can use that to make the process go quicker. We may or may not use that today, but I just wanted to show you what that was there for and if you choose to use it. Okay, so let's get started. This is a really fun project. Again, anybody can do this. I'm going to get these out of the way here for right now. So we're going to start with our piece of white paper. White paper, this is, I'm thinking it's about maybe like 12 by 18. You can work from any size paper. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this gets a little messy, so you might want to cover your table. I have a little plastic tablecloth on my table, and I have some wipes over there. But what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to cut my bag, my plastic bag that I've got here, to kind of cover some more area. Again, this will work with saran wrap, or if you have a plastic piece of wrap, that'll work just fine. And I'm actually going to cut it just a little bit smaller here. I'm going to cut it in half so it's manageable. So if you have a brother or sister that's doing this project with you, you could probably share half of the bag with them and you can use the other half, and this is reusable. So the first thing we're going to start doing is I'm going to take my markers here, and I'm actually going to just randomly put some ink. It doesn't have any kind of rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of putting some squiggles on here. So I'm using some blue and purple. Maybe a little bit of gray in here. Gray doesn't seem to be showing up as much. My marker's open here. Here's some teal. And you can see I'm just kind of putting squiggles on here, and then it's leaving ink. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take my water bottle and I'm going to spray lightly on this plastic, and you can see that the ink on here is starting to bead. You don't want too much water, just enough. And then you're going to take your paper and you're going to kind of stamp it and rub it. And it's, like I said, it's going to get a little messy. This is washable, so it might stay in your hand for a few days. But you can see how, look how pretty that is. You're going to get different colors. And so you can flip it over if you want, and you can even squish it in your hands. And because of that plastic bag, you're going to get some really nice textures in there. And as you use up some of this ink, you're going to get a little bit less and less as you move forward, but you can see how that plastic bag is giving you some really good textures, okay? So if you don't like getting things on your hands, you can wear a pair of gloves, but like I said, this is all it is water and washable marker, and this is why it's important that you use a water-soluble marker versus using a permanent marker, because a permanent marker would not be able to produce like this. So I'm going to do this again. And if for some reason this gets on your clothes, it should wash out as long as it's a washable marker. But if you want to wear a smock or an apron or something like that, you're more than welcome to do that. I like to get messy. I like to get messy when I create art, then we know that we're making something really cool. Okay, so now I've got a little bit more ink on here. I'm going to spray it again just like last time. You see how that's beading up? And you can do it either or. You can flip this on top of your paper, or you can put your paper directly on it. I think it's a little less messy if you do this and kind of lift until you get the majority of the ink. And then once you get some of that major ink on there, then you can kind of drip it on there and play around with it. Smush it with your hands. So you can see how we're starting to kind of create a really cool galaxy in the background here. And we're kind of moving things around with the ink and the paint that we have. Now you probably notice that this one is a lot less lighter than this one. So how do we achieve this? Well, this would be a good time that if you wanted to take your hairdryer, you could kind of blow it off just a little bit. You see, I'll do that right here for just a minute. We'll bring this over here. You can see I'm already getting messy, a little bit messy. But how do we get now to this darker? Well, we're going to add black marker. Okay, so we're going to take, since I've used this one, I'm going to use up the rest of the ink on here, kind of smush out any leftover ink that I might have. It's okay if you have a little bit of white. If you don't like the white, you just add more color. So I'm going to put that one aside now, and I'm going to direct my attention now on adding black ink to my new piece of little plastic wrap, okay? If you need a new piece of plastic wrap, you just get a new baggie or a new piece of saran wrap. And when you're finished, you can just throw those away. You want to make sure, you know, sometimes when we use our markers, they start to dry out and we don't have a whole lot of ink. You want to make sure that you have a marker that shows that the ink shows up on here. If you're not getting a lot of ink on here, that probably means that your marker is dry and you might want to grab another marker that might have a little more ink in it. Same process, I'm spraying it, and I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip this one. I'm going to move it around a little bit. And every single one that you do is going to look different, because depending on what colors you chose, right, your personal choice on color and your personal choice on composition about how you actually lay the color out. If you leave some areas white, if you have some areas that are darker, you can tell obviously that I made this one earlier and it's a lot different than this one, and that's okay. They're not all supposed to be cookie cutter, and that's the best thing about art, because everybody's just going to be different. So I'm going to leave this one the way it is. I kind of like the outcome of this one. You can tell it's still a little bit wet, but what we're going to do is we're going to put that one aside for right now. And while it's drying, we're going to go to the second part, which is the moon. Okay, so now I have a separate sheet of paper here, a separate sheet of white paper, a little bit smaller. And for this, oh, I've got several here. I'm going to take just a plastic bowl. Of course, it's a lot smaller than the piece of paper that I worked with, and I am going to, I have a pencil here, but that's okay. I'm going to trace this bowl here. Just to give myself a decent sized circle. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to go ahead and cut that circle out. And now for this one, we're going to do something a little bit different. Like I said, we're going to work with paint on this one, but we're going to use a kind of stamping technique. And I find this to be really kind of cool. Because we've all used stamps before, but generally they're pre-made. Normally you don't make your own stamps or use found objects as a stamp. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of aluminum foil. You can be as big or as little as you want. Here's the fun part. You just crumble it up. So all you're going to do is you're just going to kind of crumble it up. And you can see from the surface of this that you're just getting wrinkles and dents in there, just like the surface of the moon, right? So once we get kind of a ball together that we think will work here, we're going to take our paint, and I'm going to start with, oh, I didn't grab a palette. I'm going to need something to put my paint on, so I'll use one of these for right now. I'm going to use some black, or this is some gray. And again, you can use any color you want. I'm going to put gray on here. I'm going to put some black on here. I've got some dark, oh, that one's not open. We'll use this one. I've got some dark brown. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to spread them around on that tin foil to create some surface area, and I'm just going to stamp. And again, you might want a tablecloth or a piece of paper under here, but you're going to get some really cool textures by just wadding up a piece of aluminum foil. And you can see how that creates a texture, a really cool texture, a lot like maybe walking on the moon. And just like your background, just like the galaxy or space behind your moon, every single one's going to be different because the texture of your foil is going to be different. The colors that you use are going to be different. How much paint, how dark, how light that you're going to do is going to be different. Maybe you're going to have, oh, there's a big spot. Maybe that's like a big spot on the moon or a big crater on the moon. But these are fun because there's no right or wrong. You can do it any way you want. And you can make it as detailed as you want, or maybe you just want it really simple. So depending on what you want, that's how you can make it. So you can pour a lot of time in this, or you can make it really simple. And that's why it can work for really any age group here. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there with this. I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute. I'm gonna blow dry it for just a second so it's not as wet. And the thicker your paint is, the more texture you'll create too, because if you have big amounts of paint that kind of piles on there, when that dries, it's going to stick up. It's going to create its own actual texture as well. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit for a second, and we're going to come back to this one while this is drying for a minute. So in this is the last part that comes with this. I have filled a little cup. It's got some water and some white paint. So I took just some craft paint in white, and I put some water in there and I mixed it up. Just mixed it up. So it almost makes it kind of, you can see how it's real milky. It's not as thick as regular paint, but we don't want it to be as thick as regular paint because, here's the fun part. And again, this is messy, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you're in a spot where you're allowed to be messy. So, okay, so I'm taking my toothbrush, I'm dipping it in there a little bit, and I am squirting away, or towards myself, I'm sorry, towards myself. Dip it in there. And you can see how I'm getting kind of like a spray on there. Can you see that? Some of them are dots, and that's okay. But you're getting a really cool spray. So that's like adding a whole nother dimension to your piece. So it doesn't look as flat. All these different layers of colors on top of each other. And then you have these, you might want to concentrate in one area. That could be like Milky Way or something cool like that. So, and you don't have to do this. This is just a little something extra that I've added in here. But if you don't want to add that, just optional. If you don't like some of these dots in here, you can kind of soak some of those up, or you can dab them with a paper towel so they're not as distinct. Maybe they look like they're further off. So that kind of gives you a whole nother look. So now our galaxy part is done. You can see how really cool that is. Now we're going to go back to this, and our last step is to actually attach the moon. So for this, because mine's still a little wet, I'm going to use liquid glue instead of glue stick because I can't really flip it over. And I think, let me take this. I gotta look at this here, how I want it. I think I'm gonna put it right here. Now you can put it anywhere. You can put it smack dab in the middle. You can put it off to the side. It's however you want, top or bottom. That's another artistic choice of composition. So however you choose to do that is up to you. But I'm just gonna put a swirl of glue here just because mine is still wet. And I'm gonna put this little guy on here. And I have to be careful because where he's still wet. But if you let it dry completely, you can actually press it a little bit harder, or you can even use a glue stick on the back and then press it down. So even though this is still a little bit wet, and this is gonna have to dry, this is our finished project. We have a galaxy and we have a moon. And there are lots of different things that you can use and substitute around your house. So if you may not have all of these exact items, you can use different colors of paint. You can use different materials to stamp for your moon. But regardless of what route that you choose to go, I think that you're gonna have fun creating the space art. So I'll see you in lesson 2 very soon. Thank you.